On this week's The Next Interview Show podcast.
So I've learned to have a better relationship with change, which helps me be more resilient. Because when you embrace change and you realize that it's going to happen, like nothing is a straight line, right? Everything is peaks and valleys. And I
Right.
remember when I was a teenager, my grandfather, he was like, "You need to get a job at like a corporation, work 30 years, have a pension, have all this." And so my first career that I had
Right.
was with that mindset, and I just realized I hated it, and I just didn't want to do it anymore. And I couldn't live 30 years doing that. Now
Sure.
I'm the age where I would have had 30 years in that company, and I could, quote unquote, retire.
Yes.
So a part of me is like, I mean, I wouldn't even say that. A part of me wishes I would have never left. I mean, I'm glad I left.
Hi, I'm Dolan White. I'm the host of the Next Interview Show podcast, and I want to make an offer to you before we get into the interview here in just a couple of seconds. I want to offer you to go to my website. It's dolanwhite.com/LWC and download a copy of my book. It's called Lead with Confidence, 4 Bold Steps for Empowered Leadership. And in it, there are 4 pillars of empowerment that I talk about that you can apply immediately that may help you in your leadership journey and help you today. Now let's get to our conversation. Welcome to the Next Interview Show podcast. I'm Dolan White, and as that announcer coming in the door, who happened to be me, by the way, announced, I am that guy. I am Dolan. I'm the host of the podcast. Today, I always say I'm blessed when people join my podcast because I know there's 1,000 things you could be doing with your time, but I'm really looking forward to a fun conversation with a gentleman, and I'll call you inadvertently one time, I'll call you a gentleman, who I've been shoulder to shoulder with in the trenches for transparency's sake for a handful of years, and love you taking time to come on and spend with me. So I want to introduce Scott Clement. Scott is good friend. I hold him in high regard, and is a really, really, really knowledgeable expert on the topics we're going to talk about today. So welcome, Scott. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you, Dolan. Thanks for having me. It's an honor, man. I love you, and so it's great to be here.
Thank you. So I want to start, since we're past the I love you phase in this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to start with just a little bit about kind of who you are and your journey, and kind of what's brought you kind of to the precipice kind of in your business, and kind of where you're going and where you've come from, for a couple of minutes, and just have you introduce yourself to the audience, and then we'll get into some meat and potatoes and a good conversation. So.
Sure, that's a big question.
Yeah.
And as I'm sitting here and hearing the question, I'm like, man, that spans a lot of years. More than it doesn't feel like that many has passed by already, but they have. So I started, out of high school, working a corporate job, did that for about 12 or 13 years, left that, and then went to go help my buddy run his business. And we did that for a few years. And then we were really affected by the economy of 2008.
Mm-hmm.
So that business ended up shutting down, and I, kind of started all over. And I was at a place where I really didn't know what I was going to do. I couldn't find a job. I really didn't even know what I liked to do anymore. But there was one thing that I did know, and I had been running sound for a church in just as a volunteer in my hometown. And I thought, well, man, I like doing this. And I kind of got hooked up with a guy there who was a record producer, and he kind of took me under his wing and started training me and teaching me things. I'd always been involved in sound from a very young age. I remember sitting in the sound booth at my church I grew up in, and my dad let me press play on the tape deck, and I was hooked. I got to push a button and it did something that was like that I couldn't have asked for a better day.
That's cool.
So I knew then that I loved pushing buttons. So this is like 2009-ish. Now I was really learning a lot in the audio field, and I thought, well, I'm really enjoying this, and jobs really aren't that available, so I'm going to go back to school for this. So I went back to school for about a year and a half to really understand like the behind the why and how sound works and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then coming out of that, I just started freelance engineering. I became a what like I guess what the normal people or not normal people, but like the everyday people would consider a sound guy, right?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
a sound guy,
Yes.
and started working at churches, larger churches, and ended up getting a gig with a U2 tribute band. And we toured all over the world for a while. They're still touring, but
Wow.
I no longer do that. But got to go to 16 different countries, got to go to Afghanistan and Kuwait and play for the troops. Uh, so really, really cool experience. Started working a lot of corporate events, a lot, and especially in the self development arena, and
Hmm.
then just started building my skills and creating a brand for myself as an audio engineer. And then, as we all know, a few years ago, a fun little thing called COVID hit the streets, and so it was
Yeah.
another opportunity for me to start over. There was
Right.
there was a one of the there was my clients basically they weren't doing live events anymore, right? So I had the opportunity to figure out how am I going to use my skills and what I've been gifted with to help people move forward. And so I got the opportunity to help a couple clients build some studios, um, and then just really started learning a lot about the virtual environment and how people are doing virtual events, and worked through the years on that. And that's where you and I met, is through that
Right.
whole process. And and then when my clients started coming back to live events, there was another opportunity to like add to what starting over again. And it's kind of like been like starting over again, which is when my clients came to me and said, "Hey, we're going to live events, and so we'd love for you to throw out a bit, give us a bid on what it would be to do a live event."
Right.
And I had been involved in live events for a long time, but I'd never really fully produced one all by myself or with my crew or my company. And so, given that opportunity, I was scared. I was scared to death, to be honest. It's a lot of responsibility, but I just stepped in and said yes, and um, won that opportunity. And so, since then, for the last 5 years, I've been building, Level 11 Productions, and we're now serving clients all over the country, helping them produce and their virtual and hybrid events and live events. And what I really love doing about it is really helping people create a container where transformation can happen, and where they can, whether it's a corporate event that's doing a sales meeting or a self development meeting where they're, inviting people to become, into being their best version of themselves.
Sure.
It all requires transformation at some level, and so we love
Sure.
helping people do that. So that's kind of the short version of it.
That's a good summary for that length of career. It's hard to think of you back all the way, kind of pre 2008, because I always consider you to be like in your 30s. That's in my mind, is that's kind of where you are.
Yeah.
And um,
I wish my body felt that way.
yeah, yeah, man. Having just crossed 72 myself, I get it, and
Yeah.
I got you by at least 30 years. So So one of the things I want to, the podcast, I focus on leadership, right? That's we talk about leaders, and we talk about a lot of that. And I think there's a as you were going, you'll see me with the pencil and paper as you're saying stuff. I'm jotting little things down that resonate. And one of the things I want to talk about is resiliency, because I think there's this concept from a leadership perspective that I'm going to get on my career, and it's going to go just like this.
Mm-hmm.
Just straight across, and things are going to be good, and especially young leaders coming in today.
Mm-hmm.
And in your career, you've had to build resiliency in. That's part of that's the description that you just gave, was about being a resilient leader and creating a successful outcome through that process.
Mm-hmm.
When you're kind of working with your own resiliency, right? And you're facing change. And I appreciate your comment around fear. I'll come back to that. Because I remember that.
Yeah.
So, but as you're thinking about, building resiliency kind of into what you do, what mindset do you keep in so that you don't, you're not, You're not stuck. A lot of people hit resiliency and they're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you approach that as you were going through?
I'll say that I've definitely grown in this area. Sometimes it's kicking and screaming, right? And like holding on to the what was as hard as I can, like clenching on and just not letting go.
Hmm.
So I've had experiences of that. And then sometimes it feels like I'm being just forced to make the decision. And if I want to create a life for myself, like I have to change. Like
Right.
there's no option. So I've learned to have a better relationship with change, which helps me be more resilient. Because when you embrace change and you realize that it's going to happen, like nothing is a straight line, right? Everything is peaks and valleys. And I
Right.
remember when I was a teenager, my grandfather, he was like, "You need to get a job at like a corporation, work 30 years, have a pension, have all this." And so my first career that I had
Right.
was with that mindset, and I just realized I hated it, and I just didn't want to do it anymore. And I couldn't live 30 years doing that.
Sure.
Now I'm the age where I would have had 30 years in that company, and I could, quote unquote, retire. Uh,
Yes.
you know, so a part of me is like, I mean, I wouldn't even say that. A part of me is wishes I would have never left. I mean, I'm glad I left. And
Sure.
it's been a challenging road, but I just first of all, I've had a great support system. Family, friends, coaches, people like you in my life that speak truth into you when you don't feel the truth inside yourself.
Yeah.
When you don't think that you're much of anything, but you have people speaking truth into you, that believe you and they see the higher version of yourself and the true you. So that's been a huge uh, part of my growth.
Right.
And then just the desire for wanting to create a life that I'm really in love with, and I let that desire win as opposed to letting the desire to give up win. And I've had a lot of personal, just like within my health too. Like my whole life, I've dealt with a lot of health issues in my personal life, and so I think having to deal with some of that also has just made me more resilient. Like you got to go through it. There's some things you just have to go through. Like you can't give up. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I think there's some really good thinking in there because I think a lot of times it's one of the things you just said that I think is really important. I don't want to get lost on anybody listening to the podcast is developing a relationship with change.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell my clients when I'm coaching, it's fun, Scott, because I'll tell them, here's what happens. The more detail we're going to pour into this plan and the more passionate we're going to get about this and the more locked in we are, the more God's going to laugh at us
Mm-hmm.
because it's not going to go that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. It's going to go different ways. Matter of fact, I'm looking for one plan that went the way I wrote it someday.
Right. Yeah. Me too.
I'm looking for one. Just looking for one plan. But I like that concept about building that relationship with change because I think we're all, I know we're all human, and but there's that moment where when change happens. Um, there's kind of that moment of fear as you kind of step through. And you mentioned fear kind of as you were talking about in your career when you were kind of moving into virtual events and then from virtual events into in-person events and kind of making that jump to where you were hosting the whole thing. And I remember those conversations together.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I admired was your ability to kind of just think straight through it and deal with it. So when you're facing those moments of fear, right? And which again, we're all human and we all have moments of fear. And you develop the relationship with change. Change is going to occur, but fear is kind of its own animal. How do what goes on in your mind? Because I think a lot of leaders also get stumped right there. It's fear of missing out, fear of other people's opinions, fear, uncertainty. There are all kinds of acronyms around all those.
Mm-hmm.
How do you kind of take a look at it when you're looking at something like that?
Yeah. I mean, fear can be paralyzing, right?
Yeah.
Fear can either paralyze you or thrust you forward. And so, all I know, what I think in the moments, I rely on my past experience, knowing that when I stepped out in faith/fear, it always turned out better than I thought it was going to.
Mm.
Um, and that doesn't mean it turned out how I wanted it to, but it did definitely turn out better than I ever thought it could have.
Well, there is that. Yeah.
Right. I think for me, fear comes in as I'm one of my, I think, fears, and I think it is for a lot of people, but is the fear of failure, and how you're going to look when you failed.
Mm.
But over my journey too, I've also learned how to embrace failure and
Mm-hmm.
to know that there really is no such thing as failure. You're either learning I say learning or you're winning, right? So
Sure.
you either did what you said you were going to do, or you didn't. It didn't work out, and you learned something in the process, and it takes you to the next step. So I really don't believe there's a such thing as failure. However, I say that, and still at the same time, I'm afraid of failure. So, yeah. So I think one thing is just like once again, just like locking into the successes that I've had in the past, where I have stepped out in fear and I've done it afraid, that it's always worked out. I'm still here today. Like everything I've been through in life, everything your listeners have been through in life, you listening right now, everything you've been through in life, you've made it. You're successful. You're 100% successful.
Yeah.
And so, I think just like locking into that, knowing that, really I'm not in control. Like God's got me. That helps me step forward. And then I do it with both legs wobbling sometimes. And sometimes my fear is debilitating, almost to the point where it's almost debilitating, but I'm having to army crawl my way through to the next step, but you do
Mm-hmm.
you do it afraid. And so much, I think what happens for me is like when I step through that fear, after I've gotten through it, I realize like I've come to like a next level in my own self-confidence and
Sure.
self-worth and things like that. So, that we can't outperform our own self-esteem. So,
Yep. It's a rule.
It's a rule. So, just working with myself to really increase my own self-worth, my own self-esteem, my own deserving. And then just looking back on my successes and saying, hey, like you really got this. Like, what you're doing. You can do this. Like, you're capable. So let's go knock it out of the park,
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I love your statement, Scott, around learning. You're either learning or winning,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you think of things that we do, I like talking about the Kaizen moment, which is, our continuous improvement. And with the other rule is, fall 6, rise 7, just keep getting up. Just keep
Mm-hmm.
getting up, keep getting up, keep getting up.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting you mention it, because I think one of the things that happens is everybody has fear, I think, to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
There's fear's part of who we are. And we sometimes fail to stop and think about what we've accomplished, that we actually did come through it. And because we came through it and we were able to get this far, next time we're there, we can rise to this far.
Mm-hmm.
We can actually do that reach, right? And go up and push out to the next level, which is kind of part and part. You described that in the arc of your career, right? And your trajectory.
Mm-hmm.
There is that arc in there where, you're now growing, your business has grown to where you're, serving a national audience, you're working with multiple clients, you're doing your depth and breadth has gotten bigger and stronger, right?
Yeah.
When you're, one of the things I have admired, and I very rarely tell you things I admire about you, but I'll tell you this. But one of the things I admire is having had, so for transparency's sake, I've had the opportunity to be, at in-person events with you, at virtual events with you. And they're high-stake events. All in-person events and all virtual events they're high-stake events because there's an outcome that they're working towards.
Mm-hmm.
And in those events, one of the things I've admired is your team and the way the cohesiveness that you build in your team, but the cohesiveness that you've been when you don't own their hearts, souls, and minds. Because a lot of the team is not your employee.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There are people that you reach out with. So I want to explore that a little bit, because I think as leaders, we tend to think about my team. These are my people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I always talk about trust and all the hoo-ha that goes along with that. But when it is a disparate team that you're bringing from left and right, top and bottom to bring together to hit that outcome, there's an art to that that happens for building trust. So I want to explore that just a little bit with you. So how do you bring those people together and kind of create, what culture do you create, which is one way of behavior, what climate, which is the environmental feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you bring them together?
Yeah. Well, for me, if whether you're my employee or
Mm-hmm.
on my team or not, but we're all working towards the same goal or same outcome.
Mm-hmm.
You're on my team. I'm on your team. Right. So that my first approach is like, we're all a team, no matter if you're working for another company or you're a subcontractor or whatever. If we're all working towards this outcome together, we're all a team. So how can we all work together to get to where we need to go?
Right.
I think and for me and my own team, I use a combination of employees and subcontractors a lot of times.
Sure.
And it's for me, it's really important to just hire well. And I understand that those people are a reflection of me and my company, and my relationships that I have with my clients are very important and oftentimes very personal. We're not. Um, I don't just. It's rare that I don't have some type of personal relationship with my clients outside of doing events or work or whatever. I mean,
Right.
we usually end up being friends by after a few events or whatever. So it's really important to me that I'm represented well, and that and then just when you've picked the right person up front, having them become cohesive into a team that they're being brought into is really easy, because you're all on the same page coming into it. And so we oftentimes do bring in people, that have, we had an event at an event, or we had a situation come up at an event
Mm-hmm.
where, I had hired this person from locally. I had never really met him. And he came in and he was just, I'm not a fit. And I could see in our pre-production meeting for the day that my
Mm-hmm.
whole team's energy went from like here to here, and
Oh
just by this
boy.
guy's presence. And I just knew it. And I was like, I can't let that guy affect my whole team, because if he affects my team, that affects their energy. And when we're in there setting up a room, like the energy we show up with is setting the stage for the event that's going to be happening in that room. So, we get the honor of being the first people in the room. We get to really help set the stage for that energy, or the foundation for the energy that's going to be in that place. And so I take that very seriously, so we work together as a team. I have very high standards for how we support one another and work with one another, how we treat each other. And so anyways, this guy was not a fit. And so within the first
Hmm.
hour, I didn't have to, but I chose to let him go.
Sure.
And immediately the team's energy came back and the event was like a smashing success. But I know that if I would have left him in that spot, because if I would have been afraid of what people thought, or afraid of him being mad for me letting him go, or, whatever,
Right.
that wouldn't have served the event. It wouldn't have served my client. And that's way more important to me than making sure some guys, I don't want to fight. I don't want to fight that guy the whole event. So it's just very important to me that I bring in people that I know will mesh well with my clients, that they're going to love, and that I know that my people are going to take care of my client like I would.
Yeah. I
Does
think
that
that's
answer
very
your question?
No, it did. And I think it's cool, Scott, because I think one of the challenges that leaders face, and that's a really, really good example, because it kind of answered both sides of the question, right?
Yeah.
What do you do to build the culture, the climate, and team? And, there's a couple of, since we have a background in entertainment music, there's a couple of mic drop statements in there, right? I call them mic drop statements.
Yeah.
but there's a couple of,
Don't ever drop the mic, Dolan. Don't ever drop the mic.
at least warn the engineer
Your
first.
sound guy will be very mad at you.
Drop on the mic. No, you don't want to do that. That's a bad idea.
Yeah.
But no, it's interesting because it's one thing I do want to go back and touch on. I think is really very important, and it's a leader's mentality. And the leader's mentality is, we're the first ones in the door.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because we're the first ones in the door, we want to set the standard, the tone, the environment, the excitement, whatever things that you're looking for, right? Plus, I believe, when you're doing that, that also brings calm. That can bring calm that you got this, right? Which people are, in particular, if they've not worked with you before, there's a lot of experience working with different contractors and vendors, and there's nerves that occur with that because we all carry baggage from prior experiences,
right?
When we come in the door. So I think that's good. The other thing, though, too, I think that's important and not to be lost is having the courage to recognize when something's out of sync and then taking action on it, rather than just saying, okay, we're going to do this event. We'll just I just won't hire that guy again.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's one of the things that Blaine Bartlett, I do a lot of stuff with Blaine these days. One of the things Blaine and I talk about is the difference between inspiration and motivation. If you're impacting the inspiration of the team to succeed by having somebody who's going to do negative motivation, you're going to spin it out of control and you won't recover. So I think that's a really, really good lesson for leaders, is not to have, and I'm guilty. I'll raise my hand. Hi, I'm Dolan. I'm guilty of this. Where you have somebody on the team and you kind of go, well, one more try, rather than just taking action, and it does end up with that impact.
Yeah, because the rest of your team will end up performing to that standard and that level.
Right.
Like, if I have a guy that's performing and I let him stand there too long, well, the rest of the team is going to start thinking, oh, I can get away with that. So I'm going to drop. So they slowly start lowering their performance down to this level because this guy or this person can get away with it.
Right.
And so you have to, it's not comfortable for me. I don't love confrontation. I don't love calling people out on the carpet. It's very uncomfortable for me. And I am guilty as well of letting things go on way longer than they should have.
Yeah.
But you have to protect your team, to protect yourself, protect your client. You have to.
Yeah. And I think the team, ultimately, Scott, the team appreciates it. The team recognizes that you're watching out for them and that you're aware, right? You know this is going on, and you're willing to take action on it.
They're counting on you. They're counting on you to protect them and take care of them, and as a unit, that your team is counting on you to do that.
Yeah, when you're leading it, right? If you fail at that, it's deadly.
And I've had my guys tell me one of the main, some of my guys turned down better paying events, better paying gigs, more luxurious gigs or whatever, because they know that I'm going to, they work with me because they like the way I treat them. Because where other companies or people don't treat them as well. So it really helps build, and it helps me the benefit for me is I get to attract really high quality people, not only just in personality, but in skill level. Right. So because they know I'm going to take care of them and I'm going to protect them and I'm going to do right by them.
Right. It's interesting. Yeah. Cause you build something then that becomes repeatable and kind of moves forward. One of the things that I don't want to lose track of this too. And I don't know if this is the right spot to talk about it, but as your business has evolved, right, and grown, right, it's been fun to kind of hear about that and watch that and see that. I'm always watching in the shadows. I know what's going on. So, but as that goes, you said something before we hit go on the record button about stage process. So I'm really kind of curious about, first of all, what is that?
Yeah.
But then also too, not only what is that, but why did you create that? Let's talk about that for just a couple of minutes.
Yeah. And it was kind of a happy accident, to be honest. I think down in my depths, I always knew that I wanted something more substantial to base why I did what I did on.
Sure.
And I hadn't really found a way to formulate that. Until just recently. Honestly, this is like hot off the presses. It's been like maybe a week and a half. So I'm still memorizing it myself,
All right.
but it's what it's given me is the opportunity to easily explain to my clients what we're doing and how we operate in the event and in our business. And then it also helps me communicate to my team, like how we approach each event, how we approach each client, how we approach ourselves or each other. And this process supports our core values, and then it also supports our mission and vision. So it's a full through line all the way through. And so, I mean, just quite honestly, it's just like a process and the thing that I'm learning to, I'm kind of just starting to incorporate this, but it stands
Sure.
for seamless setup, transformation through experience, audience activation. So we really want to support our clients in helping them activate their audience so that they're, engaged with the process, whether it's virtual
Right.
or live. Growth optimization. And look, um, our clients, they're looking for an outcome. They're looking for a financial outcome at the end of their event, usually.
Right.
And
Right.
we want to help. We want to help them achieve that. If they're successful, we're successful. And if we can help them reach their goals, they're going to continue to want to work with us because their goals are important to us, and people love that. When you love and care about your clients and who you're serving in a way that you own what their results are or what they want. I mean, no, that's a really great way to build trust and relationship with somebody. And then the last one is just ease and elevation. We want our clients to have an easy experience with us, and not just with us, but with their event. So
Right.
we focus on making sure the setup is really easy for them through a lot of pre-event planning, and then just that their experience elevates them and elevates their whatever it is they're doing. We don't want we don't believe that, or I don't believe that people should just stay status quo, right? We want to take it to the next level and grow and be better each time. So, but at the same time, making that process really easy for our clients. I think what I love doing is coming and doing what we do well, so it frees up the person on stage to deliver their gift of whatever it is, whether it's a teaching or a musical performance or uh, you know uh, a personal development thing, whatever it is that they're
Sure.
performing from stage. I want them to be completely freed up, not have to worry about anything that we're doing, that they're just going to feel 100% fully supported in their event, that we got them. We got their back. And if something comes up, we're going to take care of it. Like, they don't have to
Yeah.
worry about, a projector didn't work, and so now they got to figure it out. No, we're going to take care of that. We're going to take care of all the things to make sure that you can focus on what you're supposed to be focusing on. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like the down and dirty of it.
Yeah. I love that the explanation. I think if we work it backwards just a little bit,
Sure.
having been a performer myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for a long time, I know what it's like when you're a long time. I was doing the math the other day. I've been involved with music for 66 years.
Nice.
That's a long time. It's probably why. Anyway, another day. This is about you, not about me. But as part of that, having experienced those moments where a mic is out or earphones don't work or monitors turn off and you're in your dark, you got no idea what's going on and you're guessing, right?
Mm-hmm.
The message that you're trying to, and for my case, it's music. And the same thing if I'm out doing speaking, it's your ability to deliver the message diminishes because you're thinking about all these other things that aren't going right. So it's easy to get lost in the weeds there. Not that that's ever happened to me. Forget a verse or in the song early, or that's never happened in my
No,
career.
I'm sure it hasn't.
Not more than at least 100 times. But nobody usually knows. I'm the only one that knows.
Mm-hmm.
Or my wife, Linda, knows. So when you're doing that, one of the things I think that's really important, that when I'm working with clients, I always tell them there's a law, right? We talk about laws, right? Clarity creates confidence.
Yeah.
And to be able to give your clients clarity on, this is who we are, these are our core values, this is our mission, this is what we're aspiring to, and with your team, and then to align those kind of with that through line to create that clarity. I could see where from a delivery perspective, it would do nothing but create strength inside of your team. So
Yeah.
So that's very cool. It'd be interesting to share that with. I don't know if that's something that's shareable, but when we share information about the podcast and the show notes and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
just to give
Absolutely.
people a chance to see some of that stuff. Um,
Kind of one thing to tag onto that is I heard once enemy or complexity is the enemy of execution. And I've
yeah,
really I love that. And
yeah,
for me, just my brain, I was like the KISS method, right? Keep it simple, stupid. Like that's the what works best for me. So when I
yeah.
heard that statement, I was like, man, that is so true. When we make things really hard and really complex, you can't execute as smoothly as you'd really like to.
You not a
So
chance, right?
you don't have the
Yeah,
chance. So that's kind of feeds into this ease and elevation too. Is like some things are going to be intricate for sure,
sure,
depending. But like let's make it the
sure.
simplest, direct line possible, so that we're not having to make it really, so we don't mess up the execution part of it. So
Yeah, yeah. It's
kind of
interesting.
learning to live by that as well.
Yeah, that's a good statement. That's an old Tony Robbins statement.
Yeah,
I think he borrowed it. But anyway, but I think
somebody
Tony
said it
said it.
somewhere.
You know what? That's kind of how it all goes. I could reach to my right about 3 feet from here and grab Think and Grow Rich and Science
Yeah,
of Getting Rich and
exactly.
all of the things that I get into every day. And
Yeah,
you just pull those out and then we translate them and own them. And yeah,
sure.
as far as anybody knows, you made that up.
Yeah,
So
sure.
there we go. We'll give you all the credit for that. So when one of the things that I want to go back in the conversation a good 20 minutes or so, and I want to talk about kind of one last topic.
Hmm.
And because as I mentioned, I try to keep these podcasts at about a half hour. We're already past it. We're not going to be anywhere near it at this
Sure.
point. Um, but one of the things you mentioned was brand. And as you're building your own, there's multiple kinds of brand, right?
Hmm.
And um, as you've been focused in growing your business, what do your experiences with building your brand? Because I think leaders get lost in the concept of, my company has a marketing department. Um, they'll tell people who we are. I don't need to really worry about my brand because my job is to go increase sales by 10%, which is not a good goal, by the way. But that's what I'm going to go. I'm going to go focus on that, right? Rather than thinking about the people and the other stuff you should be doing. So as you're working with a lot of people, right? What comes out of this is their brand
Hmm.
and who they are, which has to be authentic. Um, a little bit about two sides, lessons you've learned about building your brand and your reputation, and then what you see people when in an, I don't know if this is a word, inauthentic, unauthentic. I don't know if that's the
Hmm.
right word or not, but kind of that model and what that transition looks like, because it's one of the things I think every leader and we're all leaders. That's one of the things we need to be focused on is that who we are, and that's our brand.
Hmm.
So, how's it been in building your brand? As you're growing your organization.
Hmm. I think when I first started thinking about building my brand, I was like, oh, I'm going to get this really cool logo and have this cool website and have all these cool colors. And that's going to be my brand, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
and wow, that was way off. It is part of it, of
yeah,
course.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. You need that.
yeah, you do need that. It
Yeah,
helps. But what I've learned is that I am my brand. And I'm creating something out of the values that I hold, not only my values, but my experience, my expertise, my knowledge. I'm
yeah,
taking everything that I've kind of created in life and said, I want to do it this way.
sure.
Or I think this is like a great way to do it, And I've been putting what I've been learning to do is get it out of me and onto paper so that so that it can grow, so I can grow outside of myself. And that's been a little weird because for me personally, because everything I do is just innate. It's nature to me, right? It's in my innate nature. And so from the way I wrap up a mic cable to the way I treat my client to the way I take care of them, like it's all just within me. But to get that out and put it on paper and then teach people how to do that has been is an interesting process.
Huh.
But I really see that as my brand. Like that's what I'm giving birth to is this version of work that I believe really serves people in a way that supports them, where they feel cared for and loved. And so my brand really extends way beyond myself.
Sure.
And at the same time, it is me, right? So, like, I don't want somebody to hire Scott Clement. I want them to hire Level 11 Productions, and I want that company to represent the values that I've instilled into it. And so,
Right.
for me, that's what I see as my brand: is my values, my work ethic, my experience. Um, so that's kind of the way I see it as a brand. That's what I'm learning, anyways. That's what I've learned thus far. I'm
Mhm.
sure I have more to go, but that's what I'm taking a swing at.
Sure. I love that. So when you're, and I think that transposes it well, talking earlier about the team, right? Building together a team with
Mhm.
employees and, people to the left and right, pulling all these disparate individuals together and delivering a really cool outcome,
Mhm.
right? There's part of that with the brand. So when you're working with, when you're working with a client, are there coachable moments where you kind of say, that's not quite what let's focus on authenticity. Let's step back a bit.
Mhm.
Do you also do that as part of your relationship with them to help them also kind of, I'll call it crossing the precipice, right?
Oh, do I do that with my clients?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really uncomfortable. Especially when you're talking to power. This is something I've been learning is like,
Mhm.
when you have to coach upward, that's
Yeah.
really been a challenge for me because but that the challenge has come out of my own, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Like my own, oh my gosh, the word's not coming to me. The challenge has come out of my own, like thinking like they know more than me, or
Oh,
they know
sure.
better. Yeah. So my own
Sure.
insecurity. It's been out of my own insecurity. That's the word I was looking for.
Hmm.
But when I step into it and say, hey, and I think it's all about the way you do it too. Like if if
Makes sense.
if you obviously don't want to make them feel any type of certain negative way about what it is they're wanting to do, but I
Right.
think there's ways I've learned ways you can position it to be like, well, what if we thought about doing it this way or that way, or what if, have you considered this or have you considered that?
Right.
Have you considered how if you do this, it'll make them feel that your participants feel this way or that way, or so I think there's always a way it can be presented, but that's definitely been a growth opportunity for me. Is when you're talking to CEOs, COOs that are
Yeah.
have a lot of that are very strong in their ways of doing things, and they want it done a certain way. It can be challenging, but I think they appreciate it because I think it's another way that you show that you love and care about your client. Is
Yeah.
to if you're just always agreeing with them all the time, um, that's not, anybody can do that. But when you actually step up and and say, hey, let's think about doing it this way or that way, or have you thought about this? I think they appreciate that because they know that you're thinking about more than just, or beyond what their problem is, or beyond what this
Right.
particular solution is that they're trying to bring to the table or get solved. So um, that's kind of the way I approach it, and I have done it, and it's it's fun sometimes, but the results are really great because it helps reinforce your own self confidence and your own
Sure.
assurance of what you're providing to your client, and um, it helps them as well because you're really offering them solutions and really thinking. And then I think it's really important to do it with your team in the moment if you can. We were at an event and we were having a problem with some projectors or something, and we had swapped them out with two or three different ones, and it still wasn't giving the result the client wanted. And this team member said to me, "When do we just tell them like no, like it's not like we're not going to fix, like we've done everything we can do?"
Wow.
And I said, "You don't. That's not in our vocabulary, right? Like
Right.
this client is hiring us to put on a class A production. And that's what we're going to give them, whether it costs me money out of my pocket or not. Like we're
Sure.
gonna, and if I don't care if we have to work till 5 in the morning, even though we got to be up at 7, it's going to get fixed. And so I think it's, there's times of correction in the moment, and then there's also times of correction like in private and outside of that. But I try really hard to correct it in the moment and, give them that opportunity to learn for themselves too. And it helps them see where I'm coming from as an owner and as a leader. Like, hey, I told my team this year, well, I'll backtrack a little bit. I was a puppeteer when I was a kid, and my dad led the puppet team in our church.
Yeah.
And I had found these old VHS tapes, and I was playing for him over Christmas. And we had done this rehearsal, and at the end of it, like, he said nothing. Like, it was a pretty good, practice run of what we were doing, but it was like nothing encouraging, nothing, nothing. And I paused the tape, and I looked at him, and I was like, you could have given us a little encouragement there. Like, he's like, yeah. He's like, you're probably right. I probably could have. He goes, honestly, Scott, my mentality back then was I expected perfection and I accepted excellence.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at in my business is I expect perfection. Yeah. I realize that nothing's going to be perfect, but I expect it. I want it. But I'll settle for excellence, and I think that's what my clients want. I think that's what, even as a consumer, I want that, I want to feel like I'm treated in an excellent way. And so that's what we desire to deliver to all our clients.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's interesting. And I know well, there's a lot of depth and breadth in that, when you're working with clients, there is that. I used to tell my team all the time, look, if I'm in a meeting with 3 of you and we meet relatively frequently and all 3 of you agree with me all the time, I'm going to get 3 other people.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Because that's not what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think, although I have worked with a couple of clients that didn't appreciate feedback, but and they'll be there, and you got to love them for it. You just got to love them for that, and let them go about their business.
But some of them don't appreciate it, but that shouldn't affect the way we show up, because if they know you well enough, they know that it's coming from a place of love and care. It's not coming from like I'm better than you or I know more than you.
Sure, but I think that's really important. I think it's how we show up.
Sure.
And the fact that whether they're willing to accept it or not, doesn't mean you show up differently.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
You show up with your best intention and you show up consistently that way. So let's I want to take a couple of minutes and just, as we're kind of wrapping up the podcast, I'm officially pronouncing we're wrapping up the podcast.
Okay. You sound like a pastor that says he only has like 2 more points left. This is his last
I only got 2 more points left. Having been a pastor, don't put me back up there. All right, here we go. So what I'd like to do, though, is, we've talked about leadership. We've talked about, lessons that, pulling teams together. What I'd like to do is just take a moment, and I know we did it in the beginning, talking about your career arc and kind of where you are. Talk just a little, 60 seconds about what is level 11. What is it? What do you do? So if people are looking for help, what is it that level 11 does? And then the second part is, I tell my clients all the time, or people that talk to me about working with me, it's reciprocal. You might not be a fit for me, and I might not be a fit for you. And that's okay. I'll help you find somebody that is if I'm not, right?
Yeah.
Or if we decide that that's not how it goes. So what kind of clients do you like, do you work with? Who are you looking to, grow your business with side by side? What kind of relationships do you want to build? So a little bit about level 11, and then a little bit about the question about clients.
Okay. Thanks for asking. I appreciate it. Yeah. So level 11 Productions, we exist to help our clients. We co-create transformation or containers where transformation can occur. And we predominantly serve a lot of clients in the self-development space and also in the music space. But what my real passion is really helping people take their events to the next level and creating a space where they are freed up to deliver their gift from the stage. So whether that's a speech or a talk or a self-development seminar or a musical performance or whatever it is, we really love coming in and just supporting that. And the way, the nuts and bolts of it are, we provide sound, audio, video, lighting, staging, all of those things to all of our clients. We provide all of those services, but really the heart of it is really helping people create containers where transformation can occur. And because we know that when transformation occurs, people step in and say yes to themselves, which if you're selling something from a stage or you're offering something from a stage, it's more likely that, they're going to step in and continue to work with you. So we love supporting those kind of events. Like I said, predominantly we're working with coaches or businesses that are just wanting to create transformation. So a lot of times it's clients that are just doing sales meetings and they're wanting to invest in their salespeople. And so, but the transformation is they're trying to build the skills of their sales teams, right? So that's the transformation they're looking for. Sometimes if it's a band, they're looking to just connect with people in the audience and give them, good entertainment and give them an hour to not think about their problems that are at home. And so we want to help support them to do that, to support that crowd. And so I just really love, ever since I was a kid, I've just always been a helper, and so that's kind of how I see myself, is that we're a helper and a partner in co-creating whatever experiences you're wanting to create for your clients or for yourself or so that's what we do predominantly. And we would love to continue to build our network in the self-development space. I have some dream clients that I'd like to work with, of course. And, we just continue to serve people where they are. But I think for so many years, the production companies have just been about renting gear and bringing in gear and just kind of like going through the motions. Yeah. And I really want to get away from, my vision is to create a company where our clients really feel like we love and care about their event, their experience, and what they're trying to create for their clients. So, we really come in with a heart of service and love and care, and all in the effort to support whatever it is they're wanting to create. So, that's what we do.
Yeah, that's exciting. And I think it's funny you mentioned that, because I think a lot of organizations, not to tag on to what you said, there's a lot of things that companies do that they view as a cost center. Mm-hmm. So when I think of things that, in my career, which is now span longer than we want to talk about, across that, many times I've heard in the software industry and in other places where I've been, the cost of putting on an event, mm-hmm. not the how do we create that partnership that moves us closer to that outcome that we're looking for, which is the experience. Because people buy experiences, they don't buy stuff. That's right. They buy an experience, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I know I'm preaching to the choir on that.
Yeah.
So I want to just take one more second and I want to tell those of you who are listening, the information on how to reach Scott will be in the show notes. Normally we don't say, here's your email and URL, and although it's level of expert, it's easy to find. You're easy to find.
I'm easy to find.
But I want to make sure that do check the show notes. They're in there. If you're driving or in transit or going someplace, you're not going to write it down anyway. So check the show notes. It'll be prominently displayed in a bunch of different places. Yeah. So go there. And if you if you're listening to the podcast, we would appreciate a know, like, share. That's great. And it's not so much about know, like, share for vanity purposes. What happens when something gets known and liked is it raises an elevation. There's all this algorithm stuff that goes on, and it makes it easier for people to find it. Mm-hmm. My personal mission that's why I smiled when you said your mission about containers. My personal mission is to empower 1 million leaders, and I do that through multiple platforms. This is one of the platforms that helps me accomplish my goal. And hence, I'm still surprised. LinkedIn let me keep I'm the empowerment guy on LinkedIn. They let me keep that now. Now they call me that. Who knew?
It's appropriate.
So I just assumed it and they let me have it. It's kind of like Tony Robbins quotes. So if you listen to the podcast, give it a know, like, share. But what's even more important, if you know one or two leaders, one or two entrepreneurs who are having challenges with thinking about how do I grow my team? How do I create elasticity without losing culture? How do I focus on my client? How do I create clarity by having a process that talks about who I am, what we do, so your team knows and your clients know, so you build confidence. There's a lot of lessons that came out of this podcast today. share it with those individuals.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of really good information, and if one thing can help them, then we've met our goal. We've empowered one leader, and we've done it together side by side, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. Well, Dylan, I just want to thank you, man. I mean, you have been an impactful leader in my life, and I've learned so much from you, and the way you lead teams, and the way you lead yourself, and the way you invested and believed in me, and the way you just led me through different processes. So I want to thank you for your investment in me, for the opportunity to come and speak to the people that you're serving. And I have such a big heart for you, and I'm just so grateful for your investment and your leadership in my life. And so thank you for the lessons you've taught me and continue to teach me.
It is deeply a pleasure.
Yeah.
We learn from each other, and we have many, many more years, brother, to go do other kinds of things. Many more years.
Yes, sir.
You've been listening to The Next Interview. For more information about today's guest, be sure to visit the show notes. If you enjoyed the show, give us a follow and be sure to join us here on The Next Interview.